Okay, Rabbi Sai, so last week we opened up with a little vart from the Rabbi Blazer, from the Yeshivat Ohr. So I'll just continue with that. We said last week that it is to your benefit if God judges you first. Right? If you get to be judged first on Rosh Hashanah, it's to your benefit. He quotes the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah that talks about their Melech and Sibor. If you have a regular person and a Melech, the Gemara says the Melech goes first. He presented to God first to be judged, and the Gemara says the same thing, because you want to be judged first, because now, so to speak, God's in a good mood in the beginning of the day. And then we brought down that how do you ensure that you're judged first? We said that the Gemara's metaphors are teaching you or alluding to how you can be judged first. Either you're a tzaddik, either you get an early start, or we don't really know. It's arbitrary. Yes. Right? We said the tzaddik is the metaphor of the sheep. The getting an early start is the metaphor of the narrow path. And the metaphor of the chayalos of Beis David, the soldiers of Beis David, tell you it's a little bit arbitrary. But the truth is, the Gemara there continues, even though everyone has an individual judgment, and like we said, there's considered a place. There's considered that you get a number. You're judge number first. He judge number second. But the Gemara does end the kulam beskira achas. But there's still, everyone is judged instantaneously. So, and the Gemara brings down a pasuk, hayoytze yachad libam. So we don't understand how this is possible. If the Gemara just said a minute ago, each one is judged individually, and each one has a certain place. There's number one, number two, number three. So regular people, or that's based on time. But somehow or other, God is able to do both things simultaneously. He's able to judge each one individually, and he judges each one individually at different slots, at different time slots. But he can do it also at one shot. You don't understand how, a lot of things you don't understand about the Rabbi Shalom. But that's what the Gemara says. But the question is, what is the point of this? What is the point of saying this? Okay, we just said each one judges individually, each one has a certain slot, you better be number one. Why does the Gemara say, oh, by the way, God does it b'skira achas, in one scan. In modern Hebrew, skira means like a scan. He does it in one look. What is that alluding to? What is that the metaphor for? What is that alluding to? Oh, so the truth is, we all know that we have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. I don't know about this year, but maybe next year, the big sugya, a huge sugya, why there are 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, right? And even Eretz Yisrael, 2 days, big. You should know, a lot of Rishonim hold that in Eretz Yisrael there aren't 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. A lot of Rishonim hold that there are not 2 days of Rosh Hashanah in Eretz Yisrael. The Baal Mar holds that. We do. We obviously do. We do 2. Oh no, we do the first day. The first day of Rosh Hashanah is the Aleph. It's funny because Rosh Hashanah is the only time that the first day is actually the Rosh Chodesh. The second day of Rosh Hashanah is Beis of the Chodesh. Usually when you have 2 days of Chodesh, it's the second day that's the real Rosh Chodesh. Okay? But by the way, that's a whole conversation. There's a big sugyas in Beya and Rosh Hashanah, big sugyas. The bottom line is we have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. So the Zohar says, why is that so? The Zohar says because something called a din kosher and a din rafa. There's a harsh din and there's a soft din. But he doesn't really give an explanation what does it mean, a hard din and a soft din. But he says basically the first day represents a harsh din, and the second day represents a soft din. Oh. So what does that mean? So some want to say that God judges people on 2 levels. He first judges people on the individual level, how many mitzvahs they have, how many aveiros they have, what's their scorecard, what's their batting average. That's din kosher, looking at a person on his own. But sometimes there's a person who really should not live out the year on his own accord. He's not doing very well. He's got many aveiros. But it happens to be that this person, quote unquote Rasha, or like when we say Rasha means for that year, shouldn't be judged favorably. He happens to be, I'll give you an example, he happens to be a shoemaker for a tzaddik. And once in a while, the shoemaker, the tzaddik comes to the shoemaker, and he smiles at him, and he stands up for him, right? And he gives a little bit of a good feeling, or he helps out the tzaddik. Now, if the shoemaker disappears, you think the tzaddik won't find another shoemaker? And you don't think if the tzaddik goes to another shoemaker, the guy will also treat him well, will teach the tzaddik well, the gadol well. But the bottom line is, right now, this shoemaker is the tzaddik needs him, right now. So there God would say, really? You don't deserve to live. That's day one. Din kosher. You don't deserve to live. And the truth is, the tzaddik doesn't even really need you. But day two says, the din rafa says, yeah, but bottom line, right now, the tzaddik has some connection to you, and right now, the tzaddik happens to be using you, we'll let you live. Why? Because of how you benefit someone else. Because of what someone else gleans from you or gains from you. That's called a din rafa, right? So that's what Zohar says. On the first day, you get din kosher. You could say that in Golos, everyone does a second day of Rosh Hashanah. We can say it developed that everyone needs a din rafa. Everyone needs a second chance in our days when there's no Mashiach. So we can say it's also being alluded to in this Gemara. What does the Gemara say? Everyone is K'bnei Marim. Everyone is judged K'bnei Marim. We say, what does K'bnei Marim mean? Each one is individually judged. And we said you want to be in the first slot. But it says, B'kulam b'skira achas. There's another type of judgment. The judgment that he looks at everyone at one shot. That is alluding to, he looks at everyone not individually, but maybe Mr. A, who really doesn't deserve to live. The bottom line is, he's benefiting some tzaddik, or he's benefiting someone. And even if that someone could have another avenue, the bottom line is, right now he's the one. So that's what's being alluded in this Gemara. Din kosher, din rafa, din kosher. Kulan k'bnei marim, everyone individually. B'skira achas. But God looks at everyone in one bird's eye view, everyone together. Okay, Rabbi Isai. We left off last week asking a big question on Reb Chaim. So for 2 minutes, let us reiterate. We said, bottom line is, if you open up a Rambam, he doesn't bring a pasuk that you have to do tshuva. He does not bring a pasuk anywhere that you have to do tshuva. The only thing he does bring is, he says, there's a mitzvah to do vidur. Now, you would figure, wait a minute, you first do tshuva, and then part of tshuva is to do vidur. That's the second step. So the Minchas Chinuch says, from here we see, by the fact that there is no pasuk about tshuva, the Minchas Chinuch says, there is no mitzvah to do tshuva. You don't have to do tshuva, because no pasuk. So what, yes? What the pasuk is saying, it's like by a get. What do we say by a get? You don't got to divorce your wife. It's not a mitzvah. You don't have to divorce your wife. But if you decide to divorce it, there's a certain way to do it. And you get what we call a mitzvah kiyumis, right? So Minchas Chinuch said, the Rambam, since he has no pasuk about tshuva, he has no open pasuk about tshuva, he only has a pasuk about how it's done, which is called vidui. So the Minchas Chinuch says, we see from the Rambam, it's the same type of, it's similar to a get. You don't have to do tshuva. It's an opportunity. It's a good thing to do. Right? Of course, get is not a good thing to do, but they're both optional. You don't got to divorce your wife. You don't got to do tshuva. It's optional to do tshuva. If you decide to do it, you'll get a mitzvah kiyumis if you do it the right way, right? And so says the Minchas Chinuch is alluded in the lashon of the Rambam, because he starts off, when a person decides to do tshuva, then he better do vidur. The way to do the vidur. When a person decides to do tshuva, the way to do it is to do vidur. Okay, this is the Minchas Chinuch. But we said that Reb Chaim says, and many others, the Kirat Sefer, the Mabit, I say no, it's impossible. The Rambam also holds that tshuva is not optional. Like we said, if you go up to heaven, besides the fact that you're going to get punished for all the errors, you're going to get punished for not doing tshuva. You're going to get punished. Again, according to Minchas Chinuch, you're not punished for not doing tshuva. You're just going to get punished for all the errors you did. But according to the Reb Chaim and Kirat Sefer, you will get punished. And they say, that's what the Rambam says in the opening sentence. So from the opening sentence, it seems, from the prelude, the introduction to Hilchas Tshuva, it seems that it is a chiv. You must do tshuva. If you don't, you get punished for not doing tshuva. They just say that according to the Rambam, the pasuk that talks about tshuva is going to be the pasuk of vidui, because if you, out of all the parts of the vidui, out of all the parts of tshuva, all of them are in your heart. You know, you have contrition, you have charata, you're going to leave, you're not going to do the chet anymore. All these things are more passive. Vidui is the only open thing that you do readily right now. So the pasuk, when it talks about tshuva, it uses vidui as the main mitzvah of tshuva, because that's like the end game. That's basically the last thing you do. And that's the part that is most manifest, that has a ma'isa. But, so basically, according to Chaim, there is a mitzvah tshuva, you must do it, you have, and even though the Chumash, the Torah does not say a pasuk about tshuva, it's all included in vidui. That's from Chaim Chita, and that's the Chinuch and Chaim. And we tried to answer according to Chaim, the Lashon, Kishiyasa tshuva, he's just alluding that, of course you have to do tshuva. It's just saying that the main mitzvah is vidui. That's where it's included in the words of the Torah that says vidui. It's not the greatest answer. If you want, you can look at the Meshech Chochmah in this week's parsha. He also is bothered by this Rambam, and he gives a different answer why the Rambam says Kishiyat Tshuva. But we ended off last week and we said, okay, you know what, Reb Chaim, fine. We said this lashon, that lashon, but in Perek Zayin, it's openly l'chayra like the Minchas Chinuch. It says in Perek Zayin, since you have free will, yishtadel adam lasos tshuva. You should try to do tshuva. Why? In order that you should get olam haba. In order that you should get olam haba. So he said, wait a minute, according to Reb Chaim, what do you mean you should try to do tshuva? Mishlam, according to Minchas Chinuch, it's optional. And you're right, you should try to do it, because it would be to your folly if you don't do it. But it's optional. At the end of the day, it's optional. But according to Chaim, that's the mitzvah. You must do tshuva. There's no option here. So what does it mean? You should try to do tshuva. And what do you have to give a reason? Oh, why should you do tshuva? Oh, because it's a good thing, you'll get olam haba. If there's a mitzvah to do tshuva, you don't got to say why. Not every time you open up by matzah, it doesn't say why you do matzah. Then you got to do it. Not every Rambam doesn't write down a lulav. Just said you got to do it. It doesn't say because you should get olam haba. And the contrary. In Perek Yud, he talks about different levels of tzaddikim, and he says there, it's not proper to serve God in order to say, I'll get reward, and in order to say, I'll get olam haba. That's not the proper way to serve God. You should serve God because that's the right thing to do. Nothing to do with your own personal benefit. Just because of who God is and who you are. Even if you don't gain nothing, right? Right? Whenever I see people watching sports, and I'm like, and they're big fans. I'm like, what's your connection to these players? What do they do for you? They say, you don't appreciate the beauty. There's a beauty in the way these players play, Messi or whoever it is, right? Now he's in America, Messi. So it's a beauty in the way they play. You can tell that I'm in Eretz Yisrael for a long time because I'm talking about soccer. It's like, which American talks about soccer, right? Right? So it's a certain beauty, and Messi doesn't give you anything. He doesn't give you anything, but you appreciate what he is and what he does. And it gives you the same thing. You don't serve God, a higher level is not to serve God because you're going to get something. You just appreciate what the situation is, who you are and he is. It says in Perek Yud, you're not supposed to serve God for olam haba. So what does it say? So again, 3 questions. In Perek Zayin it says you should try to do tshuva, according to Reb Chaim and the Kiryat Sefer, Mabit. There's no try to mitzvah. 2 is, same question basically, why does the Rambam give a reason? You don't need a reason why you got to do mitzvah. And the reason is not a right reason, because the reason is that you should get olam haba, and the Rambam says himself, you should not do mitzvahs in order to get olam haba. That's not the way it works. Okay? So in order to answer this, we have to have a little bit of introduction. And on Tisha B'Av, it's the biggest day that the internet gets the most traffic and Jewish sites on Tisha B'Av, right? Like 20 times more than any other day, maybe 100 times more, because everyone's doing nothing, and so they go and they want to hear a shir or something, right? Look, I have mixed feelings about that. It's a good thing, it's a bad thing. Like we have to make, even Tisha B'Av, we have to make it to Disneyland. Even Tisha B'Av, we have to sort of like make it exciting and make it entertaining. A good thing, bad thing, I don't know. But in all the years, I never heard of all the speakers, and I listened to all the speakers, if you would ask me what is the tragedy of the loss of the Beis Hamikdash, if you ask me, it would be the following. What I'm about to say now. We have here a stira in a Mishnah and a Gemara. The Mishnah says in Shavuos that Yom Kippur is a good thing. Yom Kippur is mechaper on everything. Kalis chamuris, shoygeg mezid, Mrs. Bezdin creases. Yom Kippur, you get a clean slate for the worst of errors. The worst of errors. Essay, you didn't put on film. Lois essay, you ate pig. Lois say sheish by creases, you ate dam, you ate blood. Yesh by misa, you Shabbos, avodah zarah. You name it. Yom Kippur, next day, the Mishnah said, clean slate. You don't got to worry about anything anymore. Right? Sounds good. It's a good deal. It's a good deal. But on the other hand, if you open up a Gemara in Yuma, and everyone knows it's Gemara, the Gemara says there are Dalid Chiluke Kapara. There are 4 levels of Kapara. And the Gemara says, what's the 4 levels of Kapara? If you're over essay, tshuva is enough. If you are over a lois essay, like we said, you ate pig or something, that's only a lois essay, well, then you need tshuva in Yom Kippur. You need tshuva in Yom Kippur. Oh, and if you did a lois essay sheish by karis or chai v'misas, oh, then you're in trouble. Then you need tshuva, Yom Kippur, and Yisurim. You gotta get beaten up a little bit. You're gonna have Yisurim. Tshuva, Yom Kippur, Toil, and Yisurim Merakin. Oh, and if you have Chil Hashem to boot, then you need tshuva, Yom Kippur, Yisurim, and death. Okay? That's what it says there. Right? Everyone knows this. This is the famous 4 levels. So it's like, wait one minute. We just said it a minute ago in the Mishnah. Yom Kippur, everything clean slate, nothing. It doesn't make a difference how many people you killed. It doesn't make a difference what you did wrong. It don't make no difference. Clean slate. And over here, it's clearly not that way. Oh, so who asked this question? The Rambam asked this question. The Rambam himself asked this question. What's going on? And what does the Rambam say? The Rambam says, in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, when there was a scapegoat, so mishtaleach, when you had the Avodah of Kippur, clean slate, instantaneously in Yom Kippur. No matter what the level, essay, loisei sheish by creases, loisei sheish by misa, chil Hashem, no matter what you did, you just needed the scapegoat. And he said to add a chiddush. You don't even have to do tshuva. It's a big machlokes. You don't even have to do tshuva for the essay, the loisei. You don't need to get. So in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, the scapegoat would basically give you a free slate for essay, loisei, even without tshuva. And for the higher levels of areas, you need tshuva too. But none of this Yisurim and Misa, none of this stuff. It says the Rambam. But in our days, when we have no Sarah Mishtaleach, when we have no scapegoat, then you're in trouble. Then you have all these different levels. You need tshuva, some need Yom Kippur, some need Yisurim, and some need death. Right? So, if you think about it, this is one of the biggest tragedies of not having a Beis Hamikdash. When you had a Beis Hamikdash, it was easy. No matter what you did wrong, you basically, Yom Kippur came, and you're off the hook. And when there's no Beis Hamikdash, when there's no Beis Hamikdash, it gets very complicated. So you're sad you don't have the Beis Hamikdash, so okay, no Beis Hamikdash, big deal. No, it's showing you it hurts you in your pocket. You gotta show someone that this is hurting you in your pocket. It's not some type of abstract idea. No. When's the Beis Hamikdash? Life was good for you personally. No matter how many variants did, you start all over again. When there's no Beis Hamikdash, you have this complicated 4 levels of kapara. Fine. That's the famous, and the Rambam brings down both of this. Time Beis Hamikdash, time not Beis Hamikdash. No. Well, that's a good question. These are good questions. He's asking, so if you have Yom Kippur, the Chayr shouldn't have to bring a korban chatas after Yom Kippur. There's sugyas of shas about that. Good question. But leave it at me. That's what the Rambam says, and that's what the Gemara says. Sarah Mishlech, your scapegoat, takes all the various to the cliff over there, and that's it. Now, there is a little bit of an issue here that may make life a little bit better for us even nowadays. Why? Because there's another famous Gemara. Like, the most famous Gemara about tshuva. The Gemara says here, Omer Shlakish, Doyle Tshuva is so great. She's Doinus Nasa like Schuyos. Somehow or other, if you do Tshuva, the past Averis you did miraculously turn into mitzvahs. So let's say you did 100 Averis, and then you do Tshuva. Those 100 Averis somehow or other turn into 100 mitzvahs. That's amazing. Magical. All that creative. How could that be? I mean, what does that mean? One of the famous explanations is because bottom line is the 100 Averis was an impetus. Bottom line, it was the catalyst to cause you to do Tshuva, and when you do Tshuva, you're on a higher level. So those Averis are actually, at the end of the day, produce something positive. So that's the bottom line is. It says over here, we're not going to question too much. If that's what the Gemara says, we'll take it. You do Tshuva, all the Averis you did turn into Schuyos. So the question has to be asked, wait a minute. If that's true, that when you do Tshuva, Doyle Tshuva, she does nasaloi Schuyos, so seemingly, this shouldn't be a Dalek Chiluk and Kapara. What does Dalek Chiluk and Kapara say? Listen, you did a very A, you got to have this level. You need Tshuva only. I say only Tshuva. Alav, Tshuva, and Yom Kippur. The higher Lavim, Yom Kippur, Yisurim, and Tshuva. A higher Lav, or a higher Aveira to Hashem, you need to have Bisa too. Wait a minute. If you're telling me the second you do Tshuva, it is made into Schuyos, so the second you do Tshuva, there are no more Aveiras anymore. There are no Aveiras anymore, right? So seemingly, Reish Lakish should be against this seemingly. Not foolproof, but that's what it seems. So if Shaka says, after Tshuva, Doinus Nasa Schuyos, so that's it, no more Aveira anymore. So what do you need? The Surim, what do you need? Yom Kippur, what do you need? Anything else? Oh. But the truth is, Reish Lakish says over there another member. Reish Lakish, over there itself, the Gemara asks a stira. Because in another place, Reish Lakish says, Doyle Tshuva, she's Doinus not like a Shkagas. Tshuva is so great that once you do Tshuva, all those terrible sins are considered that you did it by accident, inadvertently. All your advertent sins, all the sins that you did willfully, is considered shkogas. Meaning, it's not eradicated, it's not like it's not that the Averis turn into merits, but it gets mitigated. It's considered only like you did an Averis by accident, a shkogas. So come back to the stira, wait a minute. What's going on over here? You said it a minute ago, when you do tshuva, the Averis turn into schusim. And now you tell me when you do tshuva, it doesn't turn into schusim, it turns into shkogas? The Gemara asks the question. What did the Gemara say? Kan mi ava, kan mi yira. It depends how you do the tshuva. There are some people do tshuva me ava, and then some people do tshuva me yira. Some people do tshuva out of love, and some do tshuva out of fear. If you do tshuva out of fear, it's effective, but the Averis turn into shkogas. The willful Averis turn into the witting Averis turn into inadvertent Averis. But if you do tshuva me'ava, tshuva from love, then the mitzvahs actually, the Averis turn into mitzvahs. So what's the interpretation? What does it mean you do tshuva me'ava or you do tshuva me'yira? So basically, tshuva me'yira means you don't really care so much that you did the Avera. It's just that you know you're going to get punished. You know there's going to be a price. There's a cost price to do an Avera. And you don't want to pay that price. So it's not like, you'd rather that there be no God, or maybe you be God. That's what you would rather. What I need is this guy up in the sky telling me what to do. I don't want that, right? No. But what should I do? This is a fact of life. I'm not God. Look, I don't want to get punished. That's tshuva me'yira. Tshuva me'ava, obviously there's many, many different levels. But tshuva me'ava is, like we said before, it's nothing to do with you're not afraid to get punished, and you don't even want a reward. You're doing it because you realize the sin was intrinsically evil. You realize this is something wrong, independent of reward and punishment. Ava is that you come to the realization that God is right and what He tells us to do is right, and it's right to listen to Him, and it's wrong not to listen to Him on its own accord. Nothing to do with the price, right? Obviously, there are many, many different levels. Obviously, The Rambam writes here about Ava in the end of Perek Yud. He's talking about the different levels of tzaddikim. He says here, you should love Hashem, and you should be crazy in love sick, more than you love a man loves a woman. Sometimes you find a man who loves a woman, and he cannot stop. He's infatuated. He can't stop thinking about her. You should love God more than that, right? Okay. Right? That's a very, very, very high level. It's very hard for. Bottom line is God is an abstract idea, right? I don't know if God spoke to you recently, didn't talk to me recently. So it's very hard for people to do that, right? But certainly there is a level of Ava that you can say, yeah, there is a God, and I'm supposed to listen to him, not only because I'm supposed to get punished, but because he's like halahavdil, like Messi. He's like amazing. He's amazing, and I appreciate that. I appreciate his amazingness, right? So there are different levels of Ava here. But basically, that's what the Gemara says. When you do tshuva me'ava, it's such a high tshuva, it's doinus nasa k'schuyas. When you do tshuva me'ira, it's a lower level than doinus nasa k'shkogas. The truth is, the Gemara says the same thing on Pei Vav and Av. The Gemara talks about different levels about tshuvas. In one pasuk it says about tshuva is like a sick man who got healed. Erpra moishvei seichem. Meaning, I don't know, people who have a serious illness, even after they get better, they still got to watch themselves. And another pasuk says, Shuva banim shovim, which implies that the sins that they did were not sins at all. It's like the tshuva turns them into completely healthy people. The Gemara Stira. One place says the tshuva makes you like a sick person who got better. Another tshuva makes it like you were never sick at all. The Gemara says the same thing. Depends on what type of tshuva you do. Okay, so now, according to what we're saying here, l'chayra, it should come out that even in our days, you don't need the dalet chalukei kapara. Even in our days, you could just, if you do tshuva me'ava, it's tantamount to sar mishkalesh. Because if you're saying if you do tshuva me'ava, doinus nasa k'schuyas, that means once you do tshuva me'ava, there's no more variance anymore. No more variance anymore, you don't got to have kapara. And if you do tshuva me'ira, that's when you need the dalet chalukei kapara. That's when you need these different levels, and you may need Yisurim, you may need Misa. Now, this is a majorly Kiddush. This is amazing. This is saying that even nowadays, you could skip all the aggravation and all the pain of Yisurim and death, just do Tshuva Me'ava, and you're good to go. The question is this true? That's a majorly Kiddush. We're saying here a majorly Kiddush. I can't tell you how major it is. So the truth is, the Zayd of the Minchas Chinuch, he has like 20 pages on tshuva. He has a lot on tshuva. And the last thing he writes, and he's talking all about the dalet chalukei kapara. He's getting very involved. He's getting involved, like when it says, a lois haseh needs tshuva and Yom Kippur. And a lav sheish bekaros needs tshuva, Yom Kippur, Yisurim. He wants to know, does that mean you need tshuva, Yom Kippur, and Yisurim? Or no, you can just have tshuva and Yisurim, and it's just saying that Yom Kippur is not enough. Yom Kippur won't help you anything. He gets very involved. A lot of pages about this. Then he says in the last paragraph, oh, by the way, it's all if you do tshuva me'ira. But if you do tshuva me'ava, you're good to go. You don't got to worry about the dalet chalukei kapara. You're good to go. Right away you get a kapara on any type of area you did, and you won't have to have any Yisurim, no Misa, no nothing. You don't even need your Kippur. And so says the Chidah, and so says the Me'iri, that's already Rishon. And so says the Charedim. Charedim, if I'm not mistaken, was a shamash of in the times of the Rizal. The Charedim brings down from a Rishon, the Mishnah says here in Avos, Tshuva ketris b'fnei paranias. Tshuva is a safeguard against punishment. Wait a minute, what do you mean tshuva is a safeguard against punishment? It says in the dalet chalukei kapara, if you do a lav sheish bekaros or lav sheish b'misa, you need tshuva and Yisurim. So how in the world can the Mishnah and Pirkei Avos say tshuva obliterates any need for Yisurim? It's the opposite. It says by Dal Chaluk Kapar. Oh, so the Taich Yontav asked this question. But one of the Rishons, Rabbi Mitoladilo, maybe it's Toledo, I don't know exactly where that's from, says, oh, very simple. This Mishnah talking about Tshuva Mei Ava. And Tshuva Mei Ava, you're good to go no matter what. You don't need Yisurim. And Rabbi Shmuel, that says the Dal Chaluk Kapar, is talking about Tshuva it's talking about Tshuva from year. Now, the Bnei Yisachar, a famous Chassidic Sefer, says he said his mind was blown by this Chiddush because, like I said, Michas Chinuch, Chidah is a Meiri, but he actually said he never saw it. He said he saw it in the Chidah, but he said like this: I don't know if the Chidah is right in actuality, but once the Chidah says it, God agrees it's the Chidah. Once, if you know what the Chidah is, you understand what he meant. So, this is a major Chiddush. This is a major Chiddush. That the Dalech Chaluk Kapar doesn't apply by Tshuva Mei Ava. Oh. The question is this Chiddush alluded to in the Rambam? It's definitely not open in the Rambam, but is it possible that we could say that actually all of this is actually in the Rambam? Oh. The truth is, if you open up a Rambam, he has something called Hilchos Tshuva, and it's a little bit funny the way it's set up. In Perek Aleph, he talks about the concept of tshuva, and he talks about what averis need tshuva, what averis need more, and that's where he says, oh, the times of the Beis Mikdash, Sar Mishlech got you a free pass. And nowadays, you need, depending on the avera, you need tshuva, you need yisurin, you need misa. He goes through it, a general concept of tshuva, and what averis need tshuva, and what need more. In Beis, he really goes at it. He explains exactly what tshuva is in Perek Beis, the charata, the vidui, the azivas achet. And he really goes through how to do tshuva and what needs to be done for tshuva. Okay. And then in Perek Gimel and Daled, he talks about the concept of Rosh Hashanah, the concept of Yom Kippur. He talks about people who won't get out of Haba, people who will be difficult for them to do tshuva. But it seems like he's veering away from a Perek Aleph and Beis. It talks about tshuva, says about tshuva, and Perek Gimel and Daled, he's now going to other subjects, which makes sense because in his opening in Akdama, he writes down, I'm going to talk about tshuva and other things that are related to it. So Perek Aleph and Beis is where he's talking about tshuva. Then he starts talking about people who don't have Olam Haba, Apikarsim, Minim, and then he talks about people who it's difficult for them to do tshuva. And then in Perek Hein Vav, he really goes to town. It's the famous Rambam is about Bechira. He talks about, do people have free will, right? And he goes people have free will. You have choices in life. And then he asks the famous question, oh, but God is omniscient. God knows everything, so how could it be that you have free will? The famous question, Yedi and Bechira. And then he talks about the famous thing of Paroi, that God sometimes takes away Bechira. Okay, so all about Bechira. So you figure, okay, great. All of a sudden, in Perek Zayin, he goes right back to tshuva. He says, and since you have Bechira, you should try to do tshuva. And he starts talking about, you have to do tshuva also on bad characteristics, on midas royas. And then he starts talking about how wonderful tshuva is. Don't think about tshuva as lower than a tzaddik. No, about tshuva is higher than a tzaddik. And then he starts talking about G'dayla tshuva, it gets you closer to the Rabbi Shalom. Tshuva, he said about Hashem Ekecha, yesterday you were hated, and today you're loved. Yesterday you did mitzvahs, God wasn't interested in listening to your mitzvahs, now He loves you, and you're so wonderful, you're so close to God, going on and on and on. And you're like wondering here, what's going on over here? And Perek Aleph and Beis, that's where he's talked about tshuva. And there also he talks about some nice things about tshuva. Okay, you did tshuva. Then you went on to other things. You went on to people have Olam Haba, people who don't have Olam Haba. You went on to the concept of Bechira. What are you going back now to tshuva? We're done. We're finished. What's going on over here? Oh. So you can answer that this is exactly what's going on. The Rambam is alluding to this concept of tshuva me'ira and tshuva me'ava. And this will be the answer to Reb Chaim. Perek Aleph and Perek Beis, the Rambam is talking about the mitzvah of tshuva, the obligation of tshuva, what you have to do tshuva on. And he's talking about the level of tshuva meira. And that's where it's a mitzvah. In Perek Zayin, he's talking about tshuva me'ava. Now, tshuva me'ava is a very high level. The Rambam says over there in Perek Yud, there's all different types of levels, and it's not something that you acquire right away. And so in Perek Zayin, he says, Yishtadel Adam Lasei Tshuva. We asked Rav Chaim, what do you mean? Yishtadel. We said it's a mitzvah, you have to do it. No, over here, he's talking about Tshuva Me'ava, which is a high level, which is not so easy. That you can't say, that's not an open mitzvah. That is optional, and it's not optional to everyone. Not everyone can get to that deep understanding. So, that's the answer. We asked, according to Chaim, why does it say Yishtadel, the Chayt mitzvah? No, over here it's talking about Tshuva Me'ava. Tshuva Me'ava is taka only a shtadlus. It's something that you have to work for. It's not per se a chiyuv. It's an opportunity. It's something that you should try to get to. Oh. And that's why it makes sense. He has to proceed. Look how he opens up. However, just call the nesuin aloi. Since you do have bechira, what does he do? What is Rambam doing here? Tshuva meira. You're afraid you're going to get punished. Usually people do tshuva meira is because they're having a lousy life in the first place. Things are going bad for them. Things are not going the right way. Usually tshuva meira is a reaction to either something bad happening to you or you're afraid something bad to happen to you. You don't need so much bechira. You don't need such a high level of free choice to do tshuva meira. But tshuva me'ava, what tshuva me'ava? No personal gain. I'm not looking to get any personal gain over here. I just realized that there is a God, and I just realized that there's a certain way to act, irrelevant to me getting reward or punishment. That's a very high level. So Rambam has to proceed. He has to make an introduction. Don't think you don't have that bechira. Don't think you don't have that free choice. So Perek Aleph and Perek Beis, he doesn't have to talk about free will. But when he wants to introduce Tshuva Me'ava, there he has to precede it, has to make an introduction to the concept of free will. That's what he said. A concept of free will. Should call Adam nesuin aloi. Since now I just said you do have free will, Yishtadel Adam Lasei Tshuva. Now try to do Tshuva Me'ava. Oh, and this also answers why he's so flowery over here. In Perek Aleph and Beis, he says do Tshuva, he does the good thing. All of a sudden over here, he's getting very emotional, getting very flowery here. And now you're loved by God, and you're so close to God. Hu ahav v'nechbad karev v'yedid. He loves you, and he's so close to you. And before that, you were hated. And the implication is that you just do this tshuva, and that's it. God loves you, and everything is great. And the implication is that right away you do this tshuva, and that's it. Good to go. God and you are buddy, best friend. What happened? It's not so simple. Oh, over here it's talking about tshuva me'ava. Tshuva me'ava, it's instantaneous. You are divorced from God, or separated from God, and then you instantaneously become close to God, and you don't need any of the interim Yisurim and Yom Kippur. You don't need any of that. Oh. With this we can answer another little bit of a sarchin. In Perek Aleph, he talks about you got to do tshuva for essay and a lois essay and a lois sheish karis. He goes through all that. Okay, all of a sudden over here in Perek Zayin he says, don't think that tshuva is only for averas like nus, gezel, gneva. No, you also have to tshuva for bad midas like kas, anger, ava, kina, jealousy. Tacharut means you're competitive, or you're Redifas Mammon, you love money, you love covet, you love food. Right, what do we all do, right? He says there, even on that you got the tshuva. Wait a minute, Rambam. You already told us in Perek Aleph what you got to do tshuva on, and how it's divided up. All of a sudden here you're saying you got to do tshuva on midas, and that you shouldn't shouldn't over excess in food and money. You shouldn't be running after money. What's going on here? But the answer is simple. If Perek Aleph and Beis talk about tshuva meira, what does tshuva meira mean? Basically, you don't want to get punished, right? You don't directly get punished for being someone who has anger or someone who likes money. These are mutter. You could like money. in first, you can like food, and so it's nothing. It's not an aveira per se. Maybe it's something that's not so admirable, but tshuva meira is not a impetus. It should not goad a person to do tshuva on midas. There's no direct punishment on these things. So only over here in Perek Zayin, we're talking about tshuva me'ava, which is a much higher level of tshuva. There you can introduce, oh, you're doing tshuva me'ava? By the way, besides the fact that you can get all these wonderful, you get a kapar right away, you can even do tshuva, when you do tshuva me'ava, you can even do tshuva on midas royas. You can really get your act together. You can really make a real transformation even on your attributes and characteristics, even subconscious. You do tshuva on kas, ava, kina, and redivas mammon. Oh, so according to what we're saying, that's a little bit of stretch. I'm going to be a little bit honest here, because he actually never said tshuva me'ava tshuva me'ir. He actually never says it. But many achronim say that this is the way, this is the division. The division of Perek Aleph and Perek Beis is tshuva me'ira, and there you have the dalech chaluke kapara, and there you have the chiv and the mitzvah. There you have the chiv and the mitzvah, and like he says in the Perek Yud, everyone could do yira, even amaratim, noshim, katanim. Yira everyone could do, but that's their chiv. Perek Zayin, where it says the shtadel, it's talking about tshuva me'ava, and there it's not for everyone per se. Like he says over here in Perek Yud, tshuva me'ava is a much higher level, and there are many different levels according to how much you invest in it. That's how much ava you have for the Lord, and that is so. It comes out that the Gemara, the division that the Gemara makes between tshuva me'ava and me'ir, zaynis nasa k'shkagis or zaynis nasa k'schuyas, is exactly what's going on in the division of the Rambam, and this is how we're answering up the Reb Chaim. Are we holding? 42? 42. What? Everyone. This is standard. This is like standard. Listen, the Gemara does say, they're not coming from nowhere. It does say tshuva me'ava, tshuva me'ir in the Gemara. That's clear. And Rish Lakish does say nasa k'schuyas. That's a pretty strong question. It's not the strongest question, but it is a question. So why did Dalech Chiluk Kapara? It is strange in the Rambam, the setup. It is strange that from Perek Aleph and Beis, all of a sudden he forgets tshuva, and Perek Zayin he gets back to it. So there's enough here that we can give a shir, I bet. There's enough here to justify me saying about this, and that's irrelevant. That's the Minchas Chinuch, says black and white that tshuva me'ava, you're good to go. You get a kapara right away. Okay, you don't need any other yisurim. You don't even need a kippur. Good. Now, Rabbi say, with this, I'm just going to start. It's going to take too long. But with this yisoid, we're going to be introduced to a machlokes between the Chafetz Chaim and Rabbi Chanan Wasserman. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman asked the most. If you go in any yeshiva thing, what's the number one question about tshuva? What is the number one question about tshuva? Right? They're going to say, oh, Rabbi Chanan Wasserman's question. That's the number one question. Right? That's the number one question. What is that question? I'm just going to present the question this week. Well, I guess we'll take it more next week. The question is, if you open up Mesilas Yesharim, so the Mesilas Yesharim waxes about how wonderful tshuva is, how miraculous it is, how kind it is that God gives you tshuva. This is not something to be taken, as a given. Tshuva is not a given. Tshuva is a great chesed that should not be given. It's because God is so kind, He allows tshuva to happen. And He says, you killed someone, you did this aver, you're nas, you lived, you adulterous. You can't undo that. That's it. It was done. How can you undo what was done? But the midas harachim is because God is such mercy, and He loves us so much that we gave tshuva and the akiris ratzin kakiris ma'isa. Since in your mind you wished you didn't do it, it's like it's not there. It's like it's undone. It's like the dead guy is alive per se. It's like whatever happened. It's like it never happened. Okay. So basically, It says here that the tshuva is a miracle, is a great net, and we have to be very thankful that God gives it to us. Oh, the problem is, says Rabbi Chanan, the Gemara in Kedushin says the same exact thing when it comes to mitzvahs. The Gemara in Kedushin says, even if you're a tzaddik your whole entire life, but at the end of your life, you decide to rebel against God, you lose all your merits. And bring the pasuk. The Gemara says, I don't understand. Okay, you lived 80 years, you're doing good. The last couple of years, you slipped a little bit. So why do you lose everything? It should be, just put it in the scale. You got the mitzvahs on one side, the various on one side. What does it mean here that you lose everything? So Rashi said, so Gemara asks the question. The Gemara says, no, of course. If you do 80 years doing mitzvahs, and then the last couple of years something goes wrong, you do various, God puts it on a scale. But what is it talking about? B'toya al rishonis. This that it says you lose everything is if at the end of your life you say, you know what, I have regret that I did those mitzvahs. Toya al rishonis. He has regret on what he did in the past. You got this great tzaddik, great chassid, and the last day of his life says, wow, I really wasted my life. I should have been an accountant. What did I do over here? What did I do that I sat in yeshiva all day or whatever? If you regret everything that you did or all the mitzvahs you did, you lose them. So says Rabbi Chanan, wait one minute. This is talking about something bad for the Jew. This is something that's bad for people. That if you regret something, all the mitzvahs you did, you lose them. So why is tshuva such a big chiddush? What's the chiddush over here? What are you saying? Tshuva is such a big chiddush. It's so merciful. It's only because of His mercy. It's only because He's so merciful. What do you mean? We see the same concept when it's the opposite, when it's not merciful, when it's to your detriment. That if your whole life you're doing mitzvahs, and then the last day you say, I wish I didn't do any of them, you lose everything. So you see that this concept works. Even not related to tshuva, just the opposite. So the Rabbi Chanan asks this Rabbi, the Chofetz Chaim, he doesn't understand. What are we getting all excited about tshuva for? It applies the other way too. This is a famous question that Rabbi Chanan asked. So we're going to see next week, lead out to the Chofetz Chaim's answer, Rabbi Chanan's answer, the Pachad Yitzchak's answer. They're all going to try to give different answers to this very, very fundamental question. Okay, everybody, so we'll stop here.